Hey everyone, this is Eric Chabot here, and some of you follow my YouTube channel. I have a blog called thinkapologetics.com, and I'm the director of two apologetic ministries here in Columbus, Ohio. They are called Ratio Christi Student Apologetics Alliance chapters. We are a nationwide ministry, and we have one at The Ohio State University, which has about 64,000 students, and then there's another one at Columbus State Community College, which has about 30,000 students. So I've been on the campus since 2005, sharing the good news with students and doing apologetics. We have regular events every year. We bring in speakers. We have weekly meetings. We do tabling. So I've had a lot of apologetic conversations with college students. And of course, I also have a small social media presence. I do not do full-time online apologetics like some YouTubers do. I don't have the time for that. But anyways, in this clip, I thought that I would share some of my insights in how we can do apologetics more effectively, talk a little bit about some of the mistakes that I've made over the years, because I've made plenty of them, and Capturing Christianity, which is a really well-known apologetics channel followed by a lot of people. They recently had a clip on some of the mistakes that they've made and how to be more effective. And so I'm going to share some of my insights on ways that I think we can be more effective at apologetics, and of course, talk about some of the mistakes that we want to try to avoid. There's a little overlap on a couple areas of Capturing Christianity, but I also have my own insights here. So first of all, I think that we need to spend more time asking questions. I used to have to try to give an argument in 2 minutes with every person I encountered, for someone that would say, well, there's no evidence for God, there's no proof for God, there's no evidence for Christianity or whatever. And then I felt the burden on me right away to come up with an argument in 2 seconds or 2 minutes and master the whole thing and try to present it to them, and then that would be it. Well, I've really slowed down a lot now and just ask a lot more questions, just like Greg Koukl talks about in his book Tactics, about asking, what do you mean by that? Because when I slow down now and ask a lot of questions, I'm helping them to think through what they're really asking. And it's not me trying to avoid the question or something like that. It really helps in our discussions. And so when they ask, they say things like there's no evidence, there's no proof for God, or there's no evidence for the resurrection, or there's no evidence for Jesus as the Son of God. I really slow down now and ask them questions like, what do you mean by evidence? What do you mean by proof? What kind of proof would satisfy you? What would it convince you to think Christianity is true? Things like that, because they really don't know a lot of times what they're asking. I mean, when it comes to logic, we have deductive proofs, we have inductive proofs, we have abductive proofs, or what's called inference the best explanation. Evidence-wise, we have direct evidence, we have circumstantial evidence. We can talk about historical evidence, scientific evidence, or personal experience, or whatever it is. So the point is that we really need to slow down, just ask a lot more questions. That's been very helpful for me over the years, and I've been doing that a lot more. Secondly, I also think that we need to realize that apologetics is not about getting rid of all doubt. It's not able to answer every question exhaustively. Now, obviously, asking questions doesn't mean you're doubting. Everybody needs to ask questions. I'm still asking questions. But the point is that sometimes we look at apologetics to give us a level of certainty that it just can't do. And it's not set up to do. It certainly can answer questions. It certainly can provide good reasons for what we believe and why we believe. But sometimes people want that exhaustive knowledge. They want every question answered exhaustively. There's this quest for certainty with Christianity that's obviously a higher certainty than anything else in life. When you get married or you commit to a job or you make any form of commitment, there's always unanswered questions. There's always some, gaps of knowledge. But for some reason, some people think they've got to get every question answered exhaustively, and that will give them what they need. But it just doesn't work that way a lot of times. Everything I've studied over the years, I'm still studying more. There's more information that comes out. It just never ends. But that doesn't mean we can't know something. Just to know something doesn't mean you have to have 100% certainty. If I say, I get married, I say, I know this is the right spouse for me. Does that mean I have 100% certainty this marriage is going to go perfectly and everything's going to work out? No, I don't. If I say, I know this is the right job for me, do I have 100% certainty that this is the right job, it's going to work out, and the company's not going to go under, I'm never going to get fired, or the economy might not change? No. But I still can say I have knowledge, I know. I can commit and make a commitment. So we sometimes make apologetics do more than what it can. Okay, so just be careful that you make sure you understand that. Thirdly, apologetics is one brick in our foundation as a Christian. To be a disciple of Jesus, we have several bricks in our foundation. We have apologetics, learning about what you believe, why you believe. We have prayer. We have Bible reading. We have community where we serve God. We have certain areas where we serve God in. We have accountability. We have our devotional life. There's just, it all goes together. It's all holistic. And so if we just make apologetics as the only brick in our foundation, we're probably going to burn out very quickly. Okay. And so that's why for those that get really into apologetics, you need to be taking care of yourself, as Capturing Christianity mentioned, by the way. We need to be people of prayer. We need to be people who have a strong devotional life in the Word. We need to be in community. We need to be accountable. And so those things all go together. And so if we're off on our own, isolated, just trying to master every argument for God and doing apologetics all the time, we probably will run into problems, okay? And then fourthly, just remember that we don't do apologetics to show how smart we are and to show off how much knowledge we have. Apologetics should all be done to the glory of God. The goal is to get people to the gospel. And all apologetics does is to try to remove some of those barriers that are in the way to for people to actually give the gospel a hearing. Now, apologetics, of course, is also for those that are inside the church. We need to figure out what we believe and why we believe it. It's for us too. It's not just to reach people. It's for us, part of our discipleship. But we never want to approach it as a way to be arrogant and show how much we know. I know we can get very insecure and feel that we have to answer every question or we look stupid. We have to win every debate. That's not necessarily true. Now, I don't do a lot of online debating. I don't get in a lot of online arguments with people, Facebook, whatever. I found that to be kind of futile. I do most of my discussions on the campus, so I'm actually seeing people in person. But anyway, just remember that ask what your goals are. You don't need to necessarily win every argument. You don't need to get the last word. I know Capturing Christianity mentioned that as well. But just remember that we're called to do it to the glory of God. And also, just remember that we can't also know everything. Apologetics is an interdisciplinary thing. We study history, we study science, we study theology, we study philosophy. We may be looking at existential arguments for God, scientific arguments for God, historical arguments for God, prophecy, psychology. Just there's all kinds of fields, and they all come into play. And some people focus on certain areas and they can't master everything. I personally have my areas I focused on through the years, but I do think people should have a general understanding of some basic things. They should be able to articulate why God exists without using the Bible. They should be able to articulate and defend the resurrection of Jesus. They should be able to understand why Jesus is the unique Savior, why he is the only way to God, and deal with religious pluralism. And they should be able to talk about the problem of suffering and evil, and probably something to do with morality, talk about some of the moral arguments, or the moral argument for God, because there's a lot of moral debates these days in our culture, the sexuality thing and other issues. So I do think as a Christian, we should know some of those things. And then lastly, let me exhort those that are frustrated with other people around them that are not interested in apologetics. Sometimes your social circles in Christianity, your Bible study group, or other people in your church just are not interested. They say, it's not my thing, that's your thing. Well, just remember that when Jesus commands us to make disciples, that part of being a disciple is a learner or a pupil. That's what a disciple is. You're a learner, a follower of Jesus. You have to learn, and you have to be you do study. If you want to be a disciple, you will be learning regularly. Now, I don't mean we worship our intellects. I don't mean we need to be scholars. But for those that say they have no interest in, or just very low interest in learning about what they believe, why they believe, they don't think they need to study, they don't think they need any of that stuff, let me just give a strong exhortation. You are not being a disciple, okay? You are not being a disciple. Now, you may say, well, Eric, you're not being a disciple in other areas. You're not loving people. You're not doing this, doing that. Good enough. And I'm not a perfect disciple. Nobody is. We all have our struggles. But for your friends that have no interest in that stuff and no interest in articulating or defending their faith, part of the reason is they're not sharing their faith. They don't engage anybody. They're not thinking about their faith deeply. They're just kind of going through life. Now, I know people have responsibilities. They have to work. They have to put bread on the table. I'm not saying everybody has to be a William Lane Craig, but there should be some interest in knowing what you believe and why you believe and wanting to articulate that to others. And so you just need to ask them what they believe a disciple is. Jesus says, teaching them to command, in Matthew 20, he says, you're supposed to go make disciples, teaching them to obey what I've commanded, right? And so you only know what Jesus commanded by reading the Gospels. And one of the two of the greatest commandments, one of them is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And so we're called to love God with all our being. And so if you just say, well, I don't need to use my mind to engage God at all, and it doesn't matter, God doesn't care, I just have a simple faith, well, you need to go study the great commandment again and see what God is really saying there. So having said that, I hope these tips help you and be more effective in your apologetics. I've made a lot of mistakes. And one last thing I will say, do a lot more listening. I used to talk a lot. I still talk a lot sometimes. Just listen to what the other person is saying. It can be hard. It's a tough discipline sometimes. But just try to hear them out, what they're saying, before you have to jump in and try to give an answer, okay? Well, that's about it. You have a good day, and I hope this helps you in your future conversations and how you build up your own faith through apologetics.